On today's recap, I'll be covering the Valley After Show episodes 6 and 7. These two were my favorite two after show episodes, maybe ever, but definitely for the Valley, 100%. And I'm telling you, there was some such, I don't know how else to say it, but such key information about the ring thing that, like, really, I think would change probably most of the audience's opinion of if there was something shady going down in Jason and Janet's marriage. Janet also continues to prove why she is just like the worst. And Jax continues to show us that he has, in fact, not changed even one little iota. It's the same excuses and the same deflection, rinse and repeat. Enjoy today's episode. Welcome to the Bravo Papers, a safe space for all us Bravo fans who love to analyze, deconstruct, and talk about our favorite Bravo shows ad nauseum. So join me, Bravo and Botox, and we'll catch up on all the Bravo news and read way too much into our favorite shows and Bravo celebrities. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Bravo Papers, here with your Valley After Show recap for episodes 6 and 7. We are doubling up, and I really needed it this week because last week was, Secret Lives of Mormon Wives, like the week before, whatever it was. It took up a good 7 days of extra recording and recapping and Twitter roundups and stuff. Not complaining because loved it. And if you're interested in recaps for Secret Lives of Mormon Wives, head over to my Patreon, patreon.com/Bravo and Botox. And there's another 10 episodes in September. So, looking forward to that. Meanwhile, we've got a whole, shit ton of drama going on the Valley, that's for sure. The last couple episodes have been good. I think they've been really good. I think this is a strong, I don't know, what do we call it? It's a strong cast, meaning there's a lot of personality disorders and assholes. So that makes a strong cast on Bravo. And we also got a mid-season trailer, which interesting, very interesting. And of course, just as expected, the trailer was just as messy and wild as the initial trailer for the season. So, was I expecting anything less? No, I was expecting a messy AF trailer, and that's exactly what I got. So thank you, Valley people. But I gotta say, something that the only thing I didn't like about the mid-season trailer was Jax. Like, I don't know, like, what I think about Jax still being on this show. Like, my gut tells me that this is not right. Like, that is my instinct, is this is not right. He should no longer be on the show. And I think a lot of us feel that way, right? And then I do understand the other school of thought of, like, maybe it's better and safer for Brit and everyone if he's being watched at all times. But what I definitely know for sure that I don't need is any sort of edit that's going to try and sympathize with Jax, make him look like a victim, make other people look like the problem, or violin, sad music. Like, I don't need any of that. I don't think we needed these rehab, like, video diary things. We didn't need any of that. That's not, don't show me this. I don't want to see that. And even just the little thing of him in the midseason trailer where he's like, trying to say something about Danny. I can't even remember what it was. And it doesn't matter. It doesn't, he could be saying the most true, accurate thing about every single cast member. It doesn't matter. I don't want to hear it. I don't want to hear, like, character critiques from, like, a serial killer. I'm not saying Jax is a serial killer, That's just my analogy. But I'm just saying that, like, from like the worst person, like, he is just in no position to ever speak on anyone's character for literally the rest of his life. I'm happy to hear it from other people on the cast, but not him. Like, I don't want to hear his opinion on that. So it's just like, what is he doing here? Because every time he opens his mouth, I'm like, deflection. Every time I know he's going to talk badly about anyone else, I know it's because he's trying to remind the audience and convince us that everything that he's done is really not that bad and really like pretty much the same level as what everyone else does. And he's not that different from anyone else. So we shouldn't all hate him and we should want him to keep being on the show. That's what he's trying to tell us, right? He's already tried to do it with Brittany. And I'm not saying Brittany doesn't have her faults. Of course she does. Like, of course I'm on her side when it comes to Jax. I'm on everyone else's side when it comes to Jax, no matter who they are, pretty much. But, yeah, she's got her faults. But like when Jax points them out, it's solely because he wants to prove to us that she's as bad as him. And then we see him in the midseason trailer, like basically saying the same thing about Danny and whoever else. You're not going to convince me, Jax. You are still the king of the worst. And you might like not just like you're not just the worst on the valley. Like you might be the worst on Bravo and maybe all of reality TV currently. And that says a lot. Okay. So he needs to stop and they need to stop allowing this. And again, I don't know what the right answer is. I really don't. But, uh, you know, some of his behavior is, well, most of his behavior is frightening, but, it's giving like this is going to end in some sort of violence that is more extreme than what's already happened. I don't want that to happen, but I'm starting to actually fear that because a lot of his behaviors are textbook, abuser behaviors and they are escalating, So, anyways, okay, let's get into the after show because he even does this. He does this on the after show. Like he's got quite a bit of, or he's got quite, sorry, I can't talk. He's got quite a few moments where he tries to like, to sort of justify why what he's doing is not that different from other people. Like there's just the same kind of game of deflection. And what really pisses me off is the amount of people still in the audience who fall for it. Like I'm like, "Hi, I have a bridge to sell you." Like, "You believe this still?" Like, my God, no wonder there's so much like fake news that spreads around and people believing stupid conspiracy theories because like there's people who still believe Jax. I can't wrap my head around that. I can't. Okay. So let's go to episode 6. We're going to start with episode 6. This after show had a lot of good stuff. I'm not going to lie. Like sometimes when I'm watching the after shows, I'm a little bit like, I'm not always like entertained or engaged. I'm just like taking notes. But I was taking notes, but I was also like, I was entertained. I was like, oh, okay. Okay, so Janet says, and my hatred for Janet is through the roof right now. I just have to say that. Okay. She is so terrible. I I actually had a moment last season where I remember thinking to myself, the hate for Janet is blown out of proportion. Like I actually thought the hate for Janet is more than what she deserves based on her actions. And I remember thinking her actions suck. She sucks 100%. Like I was not a fan of Janet, but I did feel like people's hate for her was like so extra. I've changed my mind. I actually feel like it's not enough now because the way she has progressively gotten worse and she's so annoyingly smug on the after show and just like she just like has no ability to see her own faults. It's a wild thing to watch. And the way that she makes other people's actions that are about them, she makes it into them trying to hurt her, even though it has nothing to do with her. It drives me crazy. Okay, we'll get into it. Okay, I gotta stop. So Janet says One thing that really just like made her upset about Nia is that Nia has opinions on everyone else's relationships. And she likes to point out the faults in other people's relationships. So then they do some flashy backies. I just made that up. It's not a term. And they show Nia basically every example is Nia responding to someone else who brought up their own issues. It's not Nia bringing it up. It's like, example, Jax texting Britt and Britt is pissed off and she's like, she's venting to all the girls. And Nia is just being supportive because when your friend vents about their psycho ex, you listen and you're like, yep, you're right. He's a loser. Like, that's what friends do, right? So they flash back to Nia basically saying that when Britt is talking about his constant rage texting from rehab. And she's clearly saying it to support Britt. So she says to Britt, yep, 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 textbook manipulation. Yep. Like she's just going along with it. That's not someone who is like judging and pointing out the faults in others' relationships. And find me one fucking clip, Janet, producers, they can find me one clip of Nia being like, guys, have you seen the way that Jason and Janet are? Oh my God. Or like her talking shit. It doesn't exist. She doesn't, every time she's saying anything about someone else's relationship, it's because she is lending a listening ear and they initiate it. And if she initiated some shit talking about Danny, they would listen too. And same as if Janet was shit talking Jason, same thing. I haven't seen that either. Like you say she acts like her relationship is so perfect. I haven't seen you talk any shit about your relationship, Janet. What are you hiding? Okay, Nia says they're not perfect, but they do their best not to speak badly about each other. Yeah, that's called like a marriage. Okay? Like unless you're married to Jax, who's like wants everyone to hate you because he's like crazy, that's how most marriages are. Like, even if you're mad at each other about something, you save it for behind closed doors and you support each other on the outside, which, by the way, is exactly what Janet and Jason are doing. And I don't even blame them because they're married. And as much as like I think Jason is, I'm not a fan of Jason, and I think he's, you know, doing a lot of things because Janet wants him to, but I also think he is as bad as her in a lot of ways. And that's how they probably found each other. Fine. But I do also think that he is still doing what he should do. Because when you get married, you should, you can acknowledge when your partner does something wrong, but you still should have their back. Like it should be like, you did something wrong, but I still love you. Like I see your feelings, like validate you, whatever. So Danny says they don't throw each other under the bus. That's just not their relationship. Yeah. Again, like I don't think anyone should even have to like justify that. To me, that's kind of like an unwritten rule. Nia says Danny does make mistakes, but she's not going to like pretend she thinks he's a bad guy and talk shit about him. Yeah, exactly. There's one thing to say like, my partner makes mistakes, but like, you're not going to sit there and talk shit and be like, guys, my husband is a fucking loser, alcoholic, da da da. Like, even if he was an alcoholic or is an alcoholic, again, she has every right to protect him. Just the same way that Britt protected Jax for like 7 years before she couldn't do it anymore, right? So Sheena says, because again, like we have to have Sheena's opinion. The two shows I'm covering right now, Secret Lives and this, Sheena's in it. Like she's not in Secret Lives, but she's involved. Okay. She's having like FaceTime calls with members, and now I got to talk about her again. But I have to give Sheena some credit for keeping herself relevant. It is, like I said this on the news episode, it is a skill. I'm impressed. Not everyone could do it. Okay. So Sheena says it's the constant covering up. And then she says it reminds her of how she used to cover up for Shay. Oh, God. The amount of projection from this, I don't know why I said it weird. Sorry, guys. The amount of projection from this cast is insane. Like, Janet wants Danny to be the same situation as her ex. And now Shay is saying the same thing. You stop projecting. It does. And again, even if Danny is an alcoholic or an addict, that still doesn't mean that his lived experience and situation is the same as yours. Addiction is, there is a wide spectrum with addiction. There's a lot of things that every addict has in common, but there's a lot of things that they also don't. And you can be, there are alcoholics who go to work every day, are seemingly good parents. No one knows what goes on behind closed doors. They function, whatever. There are addicts who are homeless on the street. There are addicts who can go a couple days without using. There are addicts who can't go 20 minutes. Like there is a spectrum, as much as a lot of people don't think about it that way, but that is the truth. So like stop projecting Shay's situation was Shay's situation. You know, Janet's ex was Janet's ex's situation. Whatever Danny's situation is, wherever he is on his journey, this is where he is right now. And him and Nia will deal with it. That's, you know, and you three fucking barking at them is not going to help anything. And that's what pisses me off is like they're trying to like act like they're trying to help. And it's like, you're not really trying to help. Okay. So Danny says they were vulnerable. He feels they were vulnerable last season because, you know, they're being accused of like not being vulnerable or like opening up about stuff. He says they felt like they were because she talked about her postpartum, you know, the sleep deprivation. He also reminds us, I actually had completely forgotten about this, that there's actually an episode from last season called Dark Side Danny, which that is true. So they flash back to him drunk last season with like a wig on. And again, like I think that was maybe showing him in a little bit more of a silly manner, but still like he was like drinking and being whatever on camera. And he says, you know, just because our relationship isn't as toxic as others doesn't mean that we're hiding something. Yeah. Like no one is going to be at the same level as Britt and Jax. And I mean, it is a pretty amazing thing that we have Michelle and Jesse on here who are not that far behind. But, you know, at least like they're already pretty much divorced. But yeah, like it is, yeah, like that is like just because you're not like screaming at each other and Danny's not throwing bar stools, that doesn't mean that they're hiding something. So the producer says to Nia that some people say there's a history of her pulling Danny out of situations where he'll be too drunk. Nia says no, because and then they show like a scene where she's on the phone, like saying that the babysitter has to go, so they have to leave. But yeah, you have 3 under 3. That babysitter is like, the time is up. Get me away from this zoo that I'm in of chaos. And then they basically say that it would be, Nia says it would also be fake of her to talk about every little like bickering moment because they just don't do that. And if they have like a serious thing, they talk to each other and their therapist, and that's the way that they deal with stuff. So, which to me, like, again, it makes sense. And I like Danny has been drinking and getting drunk on camera. And again, there was that whole episode called Dark Side Danny. So it is kind of like, you know, it doesn't, like, I've never felt like they were quote unquote hiding. I've just never felt that. And also, isn't the criticism that when Danny gets drunk, he acts belligerent and treats people badly? So then what do you want? Do you want Nia to leave him there and allow him to act belligerent and like an idiot and get himself in more shit? Or do you want her to be like, he's getting to a bad point and he knows it too, maybe, so it's time to check out? Like, isn't leaving and going to sleep or going home early, isn't that kind of like what Jasmine and everybody is asking for? Because maybe if he hangs around, he'll keep going and he'll get like blackout. And that isn't that what we're trying to avoid? Like, I don't understand what they want. It just, well, I mean, let's be honest. They want a storyline and they want it to not be about them. And they're all jealous because Nia is really beautiful. Sorry, but it's true. Okay. Janet says she shared, you know, Oh, wait, how was it? Oh, yeah. So Janet says that she shared her past with her partner who had drug and alcohol issues with Nia. And Nia, at the dinner, we all saw how Janet tried to make it about her because that's what she always does. And Nia was like, that's your life. Don't compare your life to mine. And Janet says that, she tried to share this like vulnerable moment and it was very hard for her. And Nia was just shitting on it. Again, it's not about you. Nia was not responding to that to be like, I don't want to talk about you, Janet. I don't care about your problems. The reason she was like shitting on it, if we want to call it that, which I wouldn't even call it that, was because you were trying to accuse her husband or at least characterize him in a way that she does not agree with. So like you were using that example to place a label on her spouse. You were not like just sharing your story of vulnerability just for the fuck of it. So shut the hell up. See, this is where I just really cannot with Janet. Janet says, she sat. Oh, sorry. Actually, Nia has something first. So Nia says it felt inappropriate to relate Danny to an addict. And Danny says she's purposefully comparing him to her ex, who was a wreck under the guise of caring, when really she just wants to talk shit. Exactly. Exactly. Thank you, Danny. I couldn't have said it better myself. It's under this guise of like, I'm trying to help you. No, you just want to fucking gossip and you want the gossip to be not about you. That's it. That's it. And you also want to, you want to be on a successful show and there needs to be some drama and let's pick on these two. That's it. Cause they didn't like get a lot of heat last season and I did because I'm a Karen. Okay. That was me as Janet. Okay. Janet says she sat and listened with Nia but felt, she didn't really get that when she opened up. Oh, yeah, sorry. I don't know what the hell. What did I write, guys? This is not good. Okay, she felt she didn't get that back when it was her who opened up. So she says, so, I won't be sharing like that again. Ooh, big loss, Janet. We're all so, oh, Janet's not going to share. Yeah, okay. No one cares. Jason says, and again, you only shared so that you could accuse Danny of being an alcoholic. So just stop. I can't. I can't. Okay. Janet says Jasmine texted her and said, he's for sure an alcoholic. Okay. That's Jasmine's opinion. Is Jasmine a doctor? Is she a psychiatrist? Is she an expert on addiction? Like she says it as though since Jasmine said it, it is now fact. Okay. Like that it doesn't, it's again, it's another opinion from a friend who's observed things. Could she be right? Possibly, yeah. But again, it doesn't like, that's not a receipt or that's not like an official diagnosis. I just have to point that out. Nia says, yes, they have had. Oh, okay. Sorry. Then they go to Jasmine, who says he might have a little issue with alcohol. So it's funny, Jasmine is not saying it quite as strongly as Janet is, but she says he might have a little issue with alcohol and he needs to examine his relationship. Sure, you can say that. That's my advice to my friend who I think might have an issue. But that's not the same as what you guys were doing. Like the freaking out while they're on the trip, like really over nothing. And like, so, if you maybe approached it that way from the start, it might have been, Nia may not have been as much with her back up against the wall. So Nia says, yes, they have had conversations about alcohol that have gone both ways. So there seems to be some implication that, they've had conversation in terms of like when too much is too much. And that makes sense because he clearly got in a lot of shit over that Halloween party, which deservedly so, where he was an asshole and grabbed Melissa and Jasmine. Danny says he has had times where he's drank, too much, and he's not. He says, but he never does it around his kids, only when he's out partying. And he said, if Nia tells me like she's upset about it, he says, I have stopped before for months on end, but then I go back to drinking socially. And then, then it could go back to like a drunken night. So yeah, like it doesn't sound like this, I don't think anyone has denied, including Nia and Danny, that he can go too far. But I think they just are not ready to be like, to the world, to be like, my name's Danny and I'm an alcoholic. Because maybe, again, because either he's not or he's just not ready yet. And either one for now is fine, right? So then where was I? Lala says if someone is closet drinking, it's probably a problem. And then she goes, because he was literally drinking in the closet. Okay, shut up, Lala. And she says, and if you're blacking out, you've got to work it out, whether it's in therapy or wherever. Okay, fine. Like these are such easy things to say from a soapbox. Like, yeah, if you get caught like drinking in a closet, you should probably like just okay. It's all just like the most cliche stuff. Like maybe you should work it out in therapy. Like, do any of you know closely his real situation and have sit down and spoke to him and spent like copious amounts of time with this person and really know what he's going through, if anything? Like it's just this whole thing is so stupid, like all based on one trip. It seems like one trip. And yes, the Halloween night. And I'm sure there were other times actually. I shouldn't say it's just these times because I'm sure there's been other blackout nights or whatever. But again, it's like, look at the cast of characters that's judging him. Have you not all kind of partaken in this sort of behavior on trips and stuff too? Like that's kind of the weird thing. And again, him grabbing Jasmine and Melissa is inexcusable and that was way too far. But again, you know, that even that scenario, as bad as it was, does not an alcoholic make necessarily. It could, but it could also just mean an asshole who got drunk once and went way too far. You know what I mean? So Lala says, she thinks it's just the pageant thing with Nia. She says, don't get me started on pageants and putting on this facade. She says, eventually you will break and Nia will hit a breaking point, and on this platform, it will come out. Like you're not even on this show. I don't like, I'm so annoyed having to hear from Lala, and okay, fine. It's the pageant thing. Like, okay, then what's your excuse? Like, you lied to everyone for like 5 years about Randall. Is that you weren't in pageants? You were being pretty fake. Okay. Danny says him and Nia are good. Okay. So then we go to, does Nia deflect? Okay. Obviously, I don't think she does, but Nia says she was in an abusive relationship before Danny that did eventually become physically abusive. Also her homelessness. Those two things together make her, she says, I truly am so grateful for a stable income, a roof over my head, a man who treats me well and is a good husband, and healthy children. Kristen looks at her lovingly and says, it's very inspiring. I loved this part. I was like, you guys are so good together. Yeah, and it is very inspiring. I'm sorry. It really is. Like, it actually is. And maybe this isn't the most like popular opinion, or because again, I think people have very limited viewpoints of addiction and alcoholics and things like that, and alcoholism, I should say. But even if Danny does have an alcohol issue, it doesn't necessarily mean that he's a bad husband and a bad father and that he's not there for Nia. Like, she could be like, he's a good man who has an illness, an addiction. Not all addicts are Jax Taylor. Jax Taylor is a narcissistic, abusive man who also happens to have an addiction. Okay. So a good person, and I don't even know, Danny could be a terrible person. I don't know him personally. I'm just judging off the show. But let's just pretend, for argument's sake, Danny could be a very good person and a good man, a good father, husband, and he could still also be an alcoholic. I just want to point out that those two things can exist. And I think one of the most powerful things that we've seen on TV too was Mary sharing her son's addiction and him sharing it. And I think we all saw like a real person who's not necessarily like a bad guy and has done, maybe made some mistakes, fine, but like him being kind of open about that and see, like, it kind of showed people, I think, addiction in a different way. And the other one I thought of was Sai on Roni. Because, and if you'd never watched Roni, you don't need to. I'll just give you the gist. But like one of them, her mother died and and seemingly of, you know, I think it was a heart attack related to alcoholism, but etc. Anyways, her mother was an alcoholic and she died. And there's one confessional where she says, I wanted to talk about this and I want to make sure that everyone knows she wasn't a bad person. And she says it more than once because it's like she wants to make sure that the audience doesn't view her mom as just like, you know, some pathetic deadbeat loser. She's like, yes, my mother had an alcohol addiction, but she was still a good person, you know? And I think people forget that. And I think that's a lot of the reason why people like maybe like Danny, because again, I don't know if he is an alcoholic or not, but maybe like Danny don't want to admit when they do have this problem because there is such like stigma around it. Okay, hopefully that all made sense. Okay, so Jasmine says she was happy um, that Nia opened up to them, but she did feel like, you know, this is why, you know, Nia kind of like has to put this facade on. And then, so Jasmine said that. And then I wrote, like, isn't that what Nia was saying? That's what I was so confused about. Like, she was like, oh, I was so happy she opened up about like her homeless thing and stuff. But then it's like, you know, maybe this is why you keep feeling like you have like a facade, like you have to put on a facade. I'm like, yeah, I think that's why Nia was saying that. Like, I think she was saying, yeah, I kind of put like, it's not even that I put this on. It's just that like, I always maybe when she was in her worst time, she was like, I'm going one day when I'm out of this, I'm never going to forget how grateful I needed to be, you know? Like, I really think that that could have been a part of it. Zach says, okay, so then Zach is like, well, who started it? And then Janet, and then he says, Janet brought it up first. And Jasmine is like, well, I don't remember. I don't know. And Zach is like, I do. Like, basically, like, Janet is the one who started this whole like discussion, you know, where then Nia felt like she had to share, you know, and kind of like explain why she puts on like a perfect whatever, which that is true. Like, really, Janet started all of this. Okay. So then, even if she didn't, I don't know if she even was it Britt who really spearheaded this topic. Yeah, it was kind of more like Britt and Jasmine, I guess, on the trip, but I still blame Janet just because, like, why not? Okay. So Janet says she was waiting for Nia to make the connection between her past with like being unhoused and all that to the issue now, but she didn't make it. And she's like, so I just felt like she's just trying to get sympathy and say, like, oh, you can't come at me because I had a rough childhood. No, she made the connection. It's not her fault if you're too dumb to get it. The connection was like, I'm not saying I have no problems and I'm not trying to hide anything. I just generally am positive about stuff because I've been through real shit. So I don't sweat stupid little things like my husband got drunk and went to bed. Like, that's not a real problem. A real problem is sleeping on the street and having to dig through the trash can to try to find something you can maybe trade in for pennies to buy some food. That's a real problem, Janet. Okay, so I act like Janet's listening. She's not. Okay. And then Sheena, of course, co-signs this. Sheena is so like raw Janet, especially in this after show and episode 7, if I ever get to episode 7, because I'm like ranting and raving. But Sheena is just always like, she's like smiling. You know who she is? She's Kris Jenner in the like, you're doing amazing, sweetie meme. Like, she's just so into everything Janet's saying. It's insane. And she laughs at her jokes like, like the fakest laughs. I can't. So Sheena says it felt like she deflected from Danny and changed the conversation. Okay. Thanks for your input, Shishu. So Michelle says, yeah. And then we just felt bad because she was crying and stuff. So what can we say? Okay. Thanks, follower. Do you have any thoughts of your own? Sheena and Janet imply that Nia rehearsed and planned to tell the story prior to coming. What a convenient accusation to make. It's one that you can't prove and you also can't disprove. So let me just throw more things out. They just want everyone to hate Nia, and it is so transparent. Yeah. Brittany says basically the same thing, and that it's an excuse for kind of like why I do these things. Well, yeah, that's what Nia was saying. Like, and it's not an excuse. I would argue it's a reason. An excuse is like if you do something bad and you're trying to like explain it away. An excuse is like Jack saying, "Well, I only punched a hole in the wall because she was texting that Julian guy." That's an excuse for violence, right? A reason is like, sometimes I'm super positive, even in a toxic situation, because I used to be home. Like, that's a little different. She's not trying to excuse, like, she's not doing anything bad. She doesn't need to apologize. She doesn't need to grovel at your feet and ask for your forgiveness. You three plus Brittany, and by three, I mean like Sheena, Janet, Michelle, you are not the queens. You're not the witches of WeHo. Like, just get off your high horse. Okay, so Zach puts this on Janet, love that, and says Janet is the one who started this whole victim narrative. Yes, exactly. Janet has been doing this. She's Miss I'm the victim, everyone feel bad for me since last season. Jasmine continues defending Janet, but says, maybe it didn't help hearing other people kind of saying things. I'm assuming it seemed like she was talking about like saying things like kind of about Nia and Danny, because then Zach kind of like agrees. And then they go back to Janet, who talks about how Jasmine was not okay with this after she left and that this was bullshit. And, it just shows me Jasmine being upset after Nia left just kind of shows me how everyone felt so silenced in that moment. No one was silenced. In fact, the problem was that you guys keep fucking flapping your mouths, and you always conveniently do most of it when she's not around. Like, if you were silent to Nia's face, that's because you didn't have the balls to say what you wanted to say in a more direct way. Sorry. You were too scared to fully lean into your villain role. And that's what makes you like not even that good of a villain, which is really the saddest part. So Michelle, let's go to Michelle, Jesse, Aaron, our favorite divorce triangle. So Michelle says Aaron understands, or sorry, Aaron doesn't understand, I should say. Michelle says she understands that Aaron was having some trouble with this situation because she has a psycho ex and it's hard to deal with for him. But she says basically his perspective is more that like Michelle needs to ignore him more. And I thought this was interesting and not engage as much because he can't take her fighting with him all the time, which I mean, I do get that. Like if you're dating somebody and then they're like constantly like getting into it with their ex. And I also understand though, from Michelle's position that, they have a kid. So there is still like a certain amount of contact. So sometimes it can be hard not to get like sucked back in, right? But Michelle says she has been doing better with that, and she is trying to kind of like talk to him as little as possible and avoid him if they are in the same situation. Okay. Jesse says him and Michelle were like kind of fine for a while, but then at the premiere for the Valley, she tried to trigger him. He doesn't say how, so I can't really say much more about that. But I will say that like he needs to stop with the like someone else's, like he uses the word trigger a lot, and it's like, they say this to addicts, to go back to that topic. It's like there's always going to be triggers. It's up to you to control yourself. And somebody could do something that they don't even mean as a trigger. Forget about even like someone deliberately trying to make you mad. There could be someone who could do something that they don't even mean to. That's on you. You have to control yourself. You can only control yourself. So Jax says that him and Britt were also doing good, but then the premiere came out and now they're reliving everything and they're all upset again. I have a feeling that that's not at all why they're not doing well. I have a sneaking suspicion that it's something else that Jax did that is new because I guarantee that I guarantee the man just never stops doing shit. Michelle says she's done her best to disengage. And, when she finally hired a lawyer, she felt more confident instead of bullied. Because I guess before they were just working with a mediator. And she said they're still navigating it, but she says they are doing the best they can. Okay. All right. I mean, that's all you can ask for, I guess, for now. Okay, let's go to episode 7. Oh my God, I can't believe I'm 40 minutes in and we're only at episode 7. What's wrong with me? Maybe episode 7 isn't that long. Hang on, I'm scrolling. Oh no, it's long. Okay. Okay, guys, strap in. So Jax came to the park. This is so crazy that this happened. And I'm not laughing at it. I'm just saying it's just, why are you allowed to leave and go to the park? What kind of rehab? This is not rehab. I don't give a shit what anyone says. This is some fancy, I bet, private fucking mental health spa. Like, I'm really questioning, when I'm not saying that there weren't actual like doctors or therapists or professionals there and that there wasn't actual therapy happening. I'm not even questioning that, but I am questioning the loosey goosey, rules of this place. Like, I have never heard of this. Never. Like, this is insanity. Okay. So Jax came to the park. He met up with Britt. So this was a plan. Okay, this was like, I was so excited to see Cruz, and he says he brought his therapist to help mediate. And he kind of went into it like thinking, that this was going to go well, and it did not go well. Britt says the whole thing felt very one-sided. She said the therapist seemed to be on his side. And she said, it was like a person who like runs the facility he's in. Okay, so that I was like, huh. Now, listen, this isn't the first I've ever heard of somebody feeling like a therapist was on one person's side more than the other. However, that being said, okay, this is like me really going into like crazy conspiracy land. I wouldn't be shocked if Jax like hired someone. This is my Bravo conspiracy. Okay, guys, this is a big one. I wouldn't be surprised if he hired someone to pretend to be the therapist to meet with them and just take Jax's side and like convince Britt that like everything Jax is doing is like, there's a part of me that like, I wouldn't even be surprised if he never really went to rehab, or like if he went and like checked out and then just went and like stayed at a hotel. I don't know. Like, I'm really questioning. I mean, she seems to say, like, when she was on Watch What Happens Live, that, like, that he has seemingly been sober, and that's good, and that it has made things, like, a little better in that there's not as many explosive moments. But she certainly didn't say that there are none, and she said things are still very bad. So I don't know. I don't know how much I'm trusting. And like, and it's hard because like, I don't want to be the person that's like the person who's in rehab. I don't believe them, but it's Jax Taylor. So like literally anything's possible. Okay, so Jax says as part of his growth, because he continually throws in the growth things. He wants to make sure we believe that he's grown. We don't. Um, he says as part of his growth, he wanted his son and wife to be in the family home. So he said I'll move out, guys. And that's why I signed that lease in a party building next to Schwartz. Fuck off. Now you realize this? You fucking psychopath? Like, oh, and now what? You want us to like clap for you because you did like the very basic, like he wants an award because he finally realized that kicking his son with autism out of the house was maybe not the best, role. And that maybe that wasn't going to make him look good to the audience. Like, get out of here with that. So Britt says he was like, didn't I did it. Didn't I do it to the therapist? And Britt was like, you guys let him sign a lease while he's in rehab? Yeah, and can we stop calling this rehab? I don't even believe that this is like, I don't know what this place is, but I really hope Andy gets into this at the reunion because I can't with this. But let's pretend for argument's sake that it is. Who is signing a lease when they're in this is psycho. You're usually not even allowed a phone. Like I okay, I knew someone recently, okay, and I don't know them well, but their husband went to rehab, okay, I'll say that. And he was allowed like a phone call, like I think it was like once every 3 days for 15 minutes, and it was like the community phone. And this was like a private rehab. Like there was no cell phones. Like it I just I just this is so crazy. Okay. So where else was I? So Jack says his real estate agent contacted him. Of course they did, because they could, because he had his fucking phone all the time. And they said they found a gem of an apartment and that like he had to jump on it now. And he didn't want to end up in a shitty apartment like Schwartz after Schwartz's divorce because that put Schwartz into a funk. And, you know, Jax, we can't be messing around with Jax's mental health. So he has to have like a palace. Okay. And then Schwartz is sitting next to him, and Schwartz is like, please leave me out of this. Because no one wants to be associated with Jax that closely. But it's funny because Schwartz is like, because Jax keeps saying, so we found this place. And Schwartz is like, no, no, no. I found my own place. They are near each other, but like, please stop. Jax then says he stands by his choice because he doesn't want his son jumping around from Airbnb to Airbnb. And his therapist stood by it too. That could have happened already. This, like, you were the reason he was jumping around. Like, I, okay. Okay, then Jack says him and his therapist went into that meeting thinking this is a great idea, and they did not see it going sideways, but Britt was pissed. Okay. When I first heard this whole thing, I was like, maybe this is, like, I have to say, my initial reaction was, well, maybe this is a step in the right direction because yeah, what the fuck? Why does she have to live at an Airbnb and he's staying at the house? So, okay, good. He signed a lease. Go back to the house. Stop paying for that Airbnb. But then just wait, because we're about to get more information that makes it clear as day why Britt stormed off. Because at first I was like, you know, I understand Britt being mad because he would just sign a lease without like running it by her and talking about the cost. And, you know, maybe it's like, you know, unbelievably expensive and it's a luxury and he's gone overboard, like all of that. Meanwhile, he's not paying the mortgage. Like I still understood that perspective. But I was also like, at the same time, at least he's, you know, vacating the house. That is good. But now I see why, because there's even more to the story. So just wait. Okay. So then he says, that so Janet says, because I don't know, we have to have Janet's perspective on everything. Janet says, why would you sign a lease for something that costs thousands of dollars when you have money issues? Okay, then we start getting into more details here. Britt says, listen, he even charmed the people at the therapy place. Well, if he did, then he's not very good. Then they're not very good because they should be recognizing these narcissistic traits. Did they not diagnose him as a narcissist? Why are you listening to him and falling for it? And Jax isn't even like that good of one. Like, I think we've seen much better narcissists on TV. Like, I think Jax is like kind of the dumber one. And I don't even think he's that good at it. He's a one trick pony. He just recycles the same like 2 or 3 lines over and over again. I'm changed. I've grown is one. Number 2 is the only reason I did that is because fill in the blank. And then the third one is like, everybody makes mistakes. Nobody's perfect. Everybody makes mistakes. There's a million people that do stuff like me every day. And I'm growing. Like those are his recycled lines. Like he's not even that creative. So Britt said is what bothered her is that number one, he didn't even think of her in the first place when she was jumping around with crews to Airbnbs. Yes, of course. Like what the fuck? Jack says he realized it was wrong that he made them move out. Oh, I'm so glad you finally realized. And then he clarifies that the Airbnbs they were going to. So here we go. Here comes the narcissist. Are you guys ready? So he says he just wants to clarify that the Airbnbs that Britt was choosing to go to were very expensive. He's like, these were not like cheap shitty places. These were like luxury. They were, and he goes, let's make that very clear. These were expensive. Okay. So he just wants to make sure that we all know that Britt didn't want to move out and live in a shitty one bedroom. Like she needed, just so you guys know, she's a superficial, sorry, I don't know why I can't talk, superficial, materialistic bitch. Okay. She went and she didn't need, she could have just sucked it up and had some grit and lived in a bad neighborhood with like an apartment where drug addicts come walking in the middle of the night. And like he's such an asshole. Like you made her leave and now you're going to criticize how much she chooses to spend, and she's paying for these. She says clearly this is 100% her money paying for the Airbnbs. So fuck off. And then Britt says, and by the way, we'll get more to this later, but we find out that the reason she was going into these quote unquote more expensive Airbnbs is because she had to stay at ones that had a swimming pool because they are very good for Cruz, part of his routine. Pools and water are his happy place, which, to be honest, we saw that on the show. That was the time he was the most happy, comfortable, alive. And, kids with autism have certain things that make them comfortable, make them happy, make them relaxed, like a sensory thing. So she's like, yes, I was willing to spend. She's like, usually it was 2,000 extra a month for a place with a pool. She's like, so that my son would be happy. And I just love how Jax did not mention that at all. I never hear him say anything about Cruz's autism or making him comfortable or supporting him in that. And that really, really makes me so angry. So then Britt says the other thing is that when she found this out, she still had 2.5 months left on her Airbnb and she had already paid for it. So this was the other thing that pissed her off, is that Jax could have gotten out of rehab and gone and stayed there. And then her and Cruz could have returned to their home. But now instead, for 2.5 months, they're going to be paying for 3 places: their home, the Airbnb, and this new place that Jack signed a lease on. Oh, God. So Jack says, well, he didn't know that. And then they flash over to Kristen Doty, who says, oh, yeah, he knew about that. And I believe Kristen, 100% I believe Kristen, okay? I believe Kristen more than anybody else on this cast. So Britt says she suggested many times that Jax move into the rentals during that time, like leading up to rehab, and he refused every single time because his ego, he didn't want to leave the house. He wants to be in control. Of course. Okay, let's get to the ring. Rings have been a big topic on Bravo. We've had the did Craig buy a ring, and now we have is Jason wearing his ring? It's like the theme of the week. So Danny says Jasmine was the first one to ever hear this whole thing about Jason not wearing a ring, and she stands by it to this day. Okay. The information we get here about the ring is actually quite a game changer for me. Like, watching the episode, I could understand how some people in the audience were like kind of like meh about the ring story, and kind of like, yeah, they didn't really like get him on that one. You know what I mean? And a lot of people did have that opinion, and I could see it. But once you watch this after show, oh, now I know it was something. Like, we missed out on a lot of detail, okay? So Jasmine heard this 3 years ago. Her and Zach then both told Kristen. Okay, so that's how Kristen found out. So apparently, here's what happened. Jason has a group of friends from not this same group, like this group with like Kristen, Michelle, like it's a different group. And he's known them for years, from like before he was even married to Janet. Okay. So apparently he had some kind of something falling out with them, whatever, and they were upset. And specifically, they were upset with, guess who, guys? Janet. So they were upset with Janet. And it was something that actually one of them told Jasmine. So Jasmine heard this from okay, so Zach and Kristen no, yeah, Zach tells us that story. And then they go over to Jasmine, who also reiterates the same story. And Jasmine says that she heard this from a group of Jason's friends at a birthday party while they were having a falling out. She says also, not just the ring was mentioned. She said, many things were said. And then she kind of makes a face. And I was like, oh, can I, any chance you're going to tell us about those other things? The party they were at was a party that Jason was supposed to be at. And like Michelle was there, like other people from the group were there. Melissa was there. And yeah, Michelle apparently heard this too. So it was not just Jasmine and Melissa. Michelle also heard it. And basically, many things were said. And the reason that Jason wasn't at this birthday party was because was because of Janet, allegedly, and because he was having a falling out with his friends, which again, Jasmine says relates to Janet. Yeah, I believe all of that. It just sounds believable. So I'm going to go with it. And from what I've heard and know about Janet, again, she's at fault. I don't need a lot of convincing in that arena. Where was I? So Janet says these are friends that Jason has known for years and years. And after they heard this, like after this was kind of like confronted and brought up on the show, like that we just watched, Janet called them. And Janet says they had no idea what Jasmine was talking about. Well, of course they're going to say that. They're not going to admit it now. And basically they're like, you know, we never said that. Where's this coming from? And Lala reiterates this, that Janet called the friends who said it, and they were like, I never said that. Da, da, da. And then one of them texted Jasmine. So this is according to Janet. One of them texted Jasmine and said, you know, why did you say this? And Jasmine's response was, I'm not the one doing this shit. It's Janet's fault. And then Janet is like, wait, it's my fault. So I'm the one starting a rumor that my husband takes his ring off. No, no, no. No, no, no. Let's keep the story straight here. You called them and said, why did you say my husband takes his ring off? Did you say that? They, of course, denied it because why would they admit that? What do they have to gain? What will they get from nothing. Okay. So they're going to deny till they die. And that's what guys do, especially guy friends. They deny till they die. Then they call Jasmine and they don't say to Jasmine, why did you say this? Because, you know, Janet, yeah, they probably told Janet this story later, their own version of it. But Janet, I'm sure, wasn't on the phone call. They probably said, yo, Jasmine, why did you rat us out and tell her that we said this? And Jasmine was probably like, listen, it came up on the show because Janet's being a fucking Karen and she's gotten herself into shit again. And this is her fault, not mine. That's probably what happened. Okay. That's what I think happened. So Janet is like, so then Janet tries to be in, oh, no, I'm the one making a rumor. No, no, no. You're not making the rumor. But I think what Jasmine was saying is that you keep getting involved in other people's business. So they're getting involved in your business. That's probably what she was saying. So then we go to Jasmine, who says, of course they didn't admit it. Yes, thank you, Jasmine. She says, they're in a good place now and they're friends again with Jason. Ding, 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 ding. Exactly what I thought. And she says, you know, that Melissa, her fiance, said to her, yeah, like, what do they have to gain from it? Exactly. Nothing. Danny says, oh, yeah, they've denied and denied and denied. Yeah, exactly. Like, it's like, you think a guy who cheats is going to admit it? And you think a guy's friends who say some shit about him when they're in a mad moment are going to admit it later when they're friends with him again? Fuck no. So then Jason says, you know, Luke and Kristen pre-planned all this between seasons. Like after season 1, they had this all planned out. Okay. And again, Janet and Jason too, they love talking about people pre-planning things. Like Janet was saying Nia pre-planned that story that she came in with about her being homeless or whatever. You know, those two who are constantly accusing people of pre-planning, maybe you're the ones who are pre-planning. Clearly you two think that way because you think everyone else is doing it. Maybe you're the ones who do it. Seems kind of like you are. So Janet says Luke tried to follow all of these friends like on Facebook to get dirt. And then we go to Luke and we hear the real story, who is that he tried to follow one of them because he was trying to stop Kristen from saying it. So he was going to befriend the guy, get confirmation that it's not true, and then say to Kristen, it's not true, so don't fucking say it on camera, because he was trying to convince her not to. Okay. Which later, based on what Kristen says, that does make sense. Okay. So we'll get to that later. So Jason says, the plan was to vet the rumor. And then Luke was mad, because Kristen just blurted it out on camera and didn't do her due diligence before saying it. No, I don't think so. Like, that's pretty diabolical for Luke. I just don't, I don't even see Luke like caring enough about that, like about like doing due diligence. Like if Luke was down with like bringing up this whole thing on camera and planning it, I don't think he would give a shit about researching it and like getting receipt. I think he would just be like, all right, let's just do it. Let's do it, babe. Like I don't think. So then we go to Janet, who again shows how much of a fan she is, who says that she goes, you know what, the fact that the best thing that Detective Doty could get on Jason was him taking off his ring and her only evidence is the streets. I feel pretty good about my marriage. And then Sheena's like sitting there nodding and starts cracking up laughing like this is like the funniest thing she's ever heard again. It's so annoying. The fact that she's saying Detective Doty and that she's trying to, even in this week's episode, she tried to say like she's always one step ahead of Kristen. You are really trying to compete. Like she is really trying to be like the head bitch in charge. Like she's trying to take Kristen down. You are not outdoing Kristen. And I will tell you something, that whatever Kristen said this episode, even though it just turned out to be like something she had heard from someone, that doesn't mean she doesn't know more. Like Kristen is not the type who's going to spill every single thing she knows. It's going to be droplets. And she's going to save quite a few of those in her back pocket and bide her time. And in the meantime, and I also believe that Janet is also at home doing research and keeping things in her pocket too. Don't get me wrong. She's just not as good at it or as likable. So then we get to, is Jason a puppet? Well, my opinion, yes. Jason, but I'm not letting him off that easy. Like I'm not going to put it all on Janet because he makes his own choices. Now, I was thinking about it and I'm like, why would he like go along with everything so easily? Like maybe things behind closed doors are more contentious, but then I was like, maybe he did just cheat and I don't know, maybe she knows about it and this is his way of like groveling and making up for it by just like defending her at every turn. Or maybe he thinks this is like a good way to like deflect, like, as long as he convinces Janet that like they're all crazy and that they're trying to like break them apart, it's like the two of them are a team and he won't get in trouble or get caught for cheating. I don't know. Just a theory, just saying. So Jason says they all drink and it's fine. But if someone is drinking in a pantry, crouched down with the door closed, and then they just lie when you ask them about it, he says, that changes things. And that's what set his plan for lunch kind of off track, like the lunch with Danny. And, made him feel something is going on. Oh, yeah, that's what made you feel something was going on? Or you had a conversation at home with your wife and she said, get out there and get to work. You did it. So Danny was surprised and caught off guard with Jason at lunch. Jason says, Danny says he had 2 drinks, but really he had 25. Okay. Again, like you were on a trip. He said, I'm playing catch up. Like he wasn't trying to hide that he was there to get hammered. Danny says then Jason brought up something from a year ago that he had already said sorry for, the whole Jasmine thing. Zach says at this moment, Danny owed Jasmine definitely a bigger apology for what he had done at the Halloween party. But Zach also says that he doesn't like how Jason kind of came in on his high horse. Jasmine disagrees and says she thinks he was coming from a good place. Zach disagrees with that and says, no, I think Jason had an ulterior motive, which I agree with. Now, that doesn't mean that he's wrong about um, Danny owing a bigger apology to Jasmine or a bigger discussion. Fine. And they ended up having that, which I think was good. However, I do think Jason had an ulterior motive. I do. I agree with Zach here. So Danny says Jason was a puppet, and he could tell by how awkward the conversation was. Like he said, it felt like Jason felt like shaky and unnatural, and like it was awkward. Um, Zach says Janet controls Jason. Of course, we all know Zach is like Janet's number one hater. Jason says Janet doesn't control him. He says him and Janet so we don't sit at home strategizing how to take people down. Again, there's that mention of strategizing, and I think you guys do. I really think you do. Kristen says those who protest too much, you know. So Kristen says she's known Janet a long time. She says she chirps in Jason's ear. But at the same time, Kristen says, you know, she's not even fully like criticizing him for that because she respects that, like, that's his wife. He should have her back. Which, yeah, agree. And she says, however, the way he talks to people and handles situations is not really the Jason that she's always known. She says, meanwhile, Janet has always been gossipy and messy, even when they were really good friends, like from the past. She says Janet just always like needs messiness and she like lives in it. Yeah, of course. That's why she like went out of her way to befriend like Vanderpump Rules people and get in this group. Like, you know, the story goes that she went to some event that she knew Sheena was at and made friends with her. And that's how she like, and then she ended up being Sheena's like assistant for a while. And that's how she like got into this group. That's for what I've heard. And I believe it. And Janet denies all of this, obviously, and says Jason has his own strong opinions about it. Okay. I mean, he didn't seem to in the hot tub, or he did have an opinion. It just wasn't the one that aligned with yours. And then a few days go by and his opinion has suddenly changed. So there's that. So Jason is asked about this and he says the reason his opinion was changed is because, you know, in the hot tub when he was asked, you know, he'd had some wine, but since then he had time to reflect. And he said, you know, personally, if I had done what Danny did, you know, to Jasmine in the past, I would never be letting a drop of alcohol go down my throat. Oh, you're such a noble saint. Good for you. Like, there's just a lot of judgment and like high horse. Like Kristen's right. This is very high horse attitude. And it's so easy to say that when you're not in the position. Like it's very easy to say that. Okay, Kristen, let's talk about Kristen in the ring rumor. So Kristen says you fuck with her friends and she'll come for you. She says Luke was pissed that she said it. And again, they don't even ask her. She's just like, I'll come for you. But Luke was pissed I said it. So that's why I kind of like, she says it so casually and quickly too, that it did make me believe that Luke was kind of trying to like shut this rumor down and find like, here's proof, Kristen. So don't bother bringing it up. Schwartz and Jack say it's a classic Kristen move, vintage Dodie. It really is vintage Dodie. We love it. Jesse says, well, I know you guys say it's vintage Dodie. However, I was sitting there and she was hesitating and he's like, I could see her fighting it. So like basically like she was trying not to say it, but she just couldn't help herself. And then they all start laughing. Danny says he loves Kristen Doty. He says, I love, love, love. He goes on and on about how he, it was funny. Kristen says she has to have a cause and she likes to be fighting for justice. And she loves that it's Nia and Danny that she's fighting for. Okay. Jason says it's typical that Kristen will defend her friends blindly, even if she's on the wrong side. Well, I mean, it's a subjective matter. So like you can't like, okay. And you're on the wrong side, Jason, in my opinion. Okay. Jason says that's how Kristen is. When she's your friend, everything you do is great. But if you're not, she'll come for you and find fault. Yeah, that's probably true. But you all do that. That's part of being a reality star as well. That's why she's lasted so long on TV, by the way. Jason says, you know, look at her exes. We're really bringing up her exes? Like her ex that we're all most familiar with is Tom Sandoval. You want to go into that? And the other one that like never paid rent a day in his life. I can't even remember what that guy's name was. He was a deadbeat. So Jason's like, look at her exes. Same thing. When she's with them, they're great, and then they break up, and she's like, oh, they're subhuman. Okay, well, Tom Sandoval is kind of subhuman, but yeah, everyone does that though. Everyone, when they're with someone, they love them and say good things about them. That's why they're with them. And then when they break up, you like hate the person. That's how you get over someone. Like you're not saying anything that like a lot of people, and I'm not some people I guess are like really mature when they have a breakup, but not like the majority of people talk shit about their ex. Like that's not crazy. Like he's trying here. Janet says it's the same as season 1. Jax brought Kristen's ex on the show, and she was so scared of what he would say, so she deflected it with Janet said Michelle is a racist. What? It's like, okay, that was a little bit of a stretch, but Janet, that's still your fault. So you said that Michelle is like Republican and maybe racist or whatever, or like homophobic. You're the one who brought that up. If you hadn't have said it, Kristen wouldn't have had anything to tell. Like, I love how Janet sits here and she's delusional. Like, she truly thinks that she's making a point. Like, no, you're just reminding us that you were talking shit about like, one of your best friends who's sitting in this confessional right next to you right now, by the way. Like, this is like no accountability at all. Like, again, she's still blaming Kristen for her own shit talking. You can't be mad at people when they spread the rumor that you started. Like, it's your own fucking fault. Okay. It's crazy. Now you see why I was so like heated about Janet. Still am. So then Sheena starts listing examples because apparently Sheena is like Janet's sidekick all of it. Like, I don't know what's going on. I guess she knows like this isn't her show, so she's kind of like falling into the like lapdog kind of role. But she's like, yeah, see, Michelle is racist. Michelle had a boyfriend for a year. I just want to point out that Michelle having a boyfriend for a year ago, that did turn out to be true. I just want to point that out. I also want to point out that, yeah, like I kind of believe that Michelle was like pro the don't say gay bill. And I really think she got off scot-free from that topic because it became all about like who said it and where it came from, and no one talked about it. I'm just saying she got away with that. I'm just saying. Okay. Janet says she looked at Jason, when they were at the party and whatever, and there was no fear or panic from him. So she didn't believe it. No, there wasn't fear and panic when they brought up the taking off the ring. Once that was said explicitly, there was no panic. But leading up to it being said, when he didn't know what was going to be said, oh, there was fear and panic. Go back and rewind, Janet. That man was spiraling and panicking. He was like, what's it going to be? What are they going to say? Like, he looks so, and I'm not the only one who noticed it. I saw it all over Twitter. Okay. So he wasn't nervous because the ring thing is probably a nothing. And that's an easy thing to deny and no one can prove it, et cetera, et cetera. But there's something else. Okay. They don't have it. So that's why as soon as they said the ring thing, he all of a sudden sat back and relaxed. So true. But leading up to that, he was panicking. Okay. Schwartz and Jax don't believe that Jason cheated, but Schwartz mentions that the ring rumor, it's funny because Schwartz is like, no, Jason's a good guy. But that ring rumor's been around for years. It's an old one. And I kind of felt like that was Schwartz's like backdoor way of saying like, yeah, it could be true. Like Schwartz knows what he's doing. I think he knows what he's doing more than a lot of other people on these shows. And I actually think he's smoother at it, which is how he got away with it for so long. He got away with his like kind of being I don't know what to call it, like a covert asshole for a long time. I think he threw the audience a bone there. I think he did that on purpose. I think that was Schwartz's way of saying like, yeah, there's probably something to that. Everyone, it's been around for a real long time, as in like, that means something. So Kristen, Lala, and most of the people in confessional say they don't see Jason as the type who's like Rico Suave hitting on all the girls or something. Nia says same, but she says, she likes to not judge something that she hasn't seen, but she says you also don't know, which again, listen, I have known friends who've dated guys who, like, I thought he's the last one in the group that would cheat. Like, he's so not suave. He's so not good with girls. Like, he's an awkward. He's the least good looking. Like you listed, I've seen it, and that has happened. That a situation with a friend where she's not with him anymore, but the guy ended up being like the biggest cheater of life. So you really never know. And he literally was the last person you would expect. So then we go to Jack's not paying the mortgage. So this is crazy. So Britt moved out in January. He stopped paying the mortgage in February. So pretty soon. Britt says routine and comfort is very important to Cruz. So moving out was obviously very hard, but Jack still was refusing to leave. And then even after she left, he was demanding that she pays bills when she wasn't even living there. And she said if she had known he wasn't paying the mortgage, though, she would have paid it, but she didn't know. She says she wasted money on all these rentals because of him. And, if she had stayed in the home, she would have paid the mortgage, and that money could have gone into that and into something they own instead of these rentals. So yeah, because like he's not paying anything, right? So like it would almost be better for him to pay in a rental because you have to pay to stay, and then her paying the mortgage. So at least we know the mortgage is getting paid and you're not like fucking up your credit and like losing your home or some shit. So Jason says, and then Jason here, by the way, if he hasn't been bad enough, he's here to defend Jax, guys. He says, Jax was going through a tough time. And when you're dealing with depression and anxiety, it makes you ignore your responsibility. Oh, fuck off. That is not why he didn't pay the mortgage. Jax himself says in this scene why he didn't pay the mortgage. Okay, wait for it. Zach says, we'll get there. Zach says it's malicious because Jax was pissed that Brittany left and this was like part of his revenge. Totally. I co-sign that. Britt says he didn't want to live there anymore. Britt wasn't there. So he was like, I just won't pay. Jax admits he didn't care. So he wasn't going to pay. That's what Jax says, by the way. He says, I didn't pay for 6 months. And then I had to pay $200,000, which included penalties for not paying. He said, so, I learned my lesson and that was tough paying that back. Fucking idiot. Okay. Then Britt says he also didn't pay his taxes for 6 years. And then their mortgage, which used to be $8,000 a month, went up to $14,000 a month because of Jack's not paying his taxes. And she's like, he had the attitude of like, oh, you just ignore it and it'll go away. Oh, God, help us. Okay. He's lucky he's not in prison. Okay. So Jack says, this is one of Jax's classic lines: rinse, recycle, repeat. Here it is. Are you ready? Everyone makes mistakes with taxes. Yeah, everybody does that. Everyone goes through a phase where they're behind $200,000 on taxes. That's everyone. Okay. Britt says he was in charge of the mortgage and she paid everything else, and everything else added up to be about the same as the mortgage, which I do believe, because when you're in a house like that, the bills are not cheap. They have a pool. They have all these things to maintain, and she would pay for everything for Cruz, all that kind of stuff. And that was the way they divided it up. And I do understand that because that's how my husband and I do it, to be honest. Like, I pay the mortgage fully and he pays all the other bills, which adds up to be approximately the same as the mortgage, and then like give or take like the little things like grocery shopping and things like that. So I can understand that as an arrangement. Kristen and Nia say he didn't care because he knew Britt would clean up his mess. And they're right, because she pretty much did. Britt says she needed to have rentals, and this is where she talks about the swimming pools, because that's Cruz's happy place, etc., the routine, all that, and that's why she had to get a more expensive rental. She says Jax only gave her $3,000 total in all of 2024 to help with like Cruz, just everything. And like anyone who has a child or sibling or whatever with autism knows, especially when they're young and they're first getting diagnosed and all the treatments and forever, it costs a lot of money. Like they say it averages, like the average parent who has like a child with autism spends like 60 grand a year on like care, therapy, like all these kind of things, like tools you need that help them, like just everything. So, you know, just like $3,000 that's nothing. That's just insane. She says in 2025, now between 2025 and 2024, he's given her a total of $8,000 only. So he's paid for like not even 1 month of mortgage at their house. And the reason their mortgage is so expensive is because of him, because he didn't pay his taxes for 6 years. She says she's been making a lot more money with like brand deals and things like that. Especially like she had a lot of big partnerships. Like we know she had that like Jenny Craig thing and stuff. And she says that to be honest, it really has always bothered him. Like he was never happy for her about that, which again, that's like classic abuser. Doesn't want her to have any success or any confidence or things to herself. Jesse, then we talk about lastly here. Yes, lastly is Jesse. Does he still have feelings for Michelle? He says, short answer is no. Janet says that Jesse's the kind who wants the classiest, most put together girl in the room, and he doesn't have low standards like Jax. Oh, okay. I mean, I see what she's saying. So when Michelle walks into the room, he's bothered because she's not his. I mean, yeah, that's probably part of it. Jesse says they were separated and they did keep it secret for a little while. He says she even stayed in the home and it did get toxic because they were living together and they were separated. So during that time, all his feelings for her did go away. That's what he claims. Doesn't mean it's necessarily true. But again, I kind of believe that he didn't have feelings for her, but I believe that you don't have to have feelings for someone to still fuck with them and make their life kind of hell during a divorce. You can just be mad and just want to be controlling or get revenge. Like those can all be true. Michelle says he never initiated sex. Okay. That is a bad sign. And like, Michelle was like, I need like affection, and he wasn't affectionate and all that kind of stuff. So, I mean, the list of reasons why these two didn't work out is just, it's a long one. It's a very long one. Sorry. Lala says she thinks that Jesse just wanted control and that he doesn't really love Michelle. Now, that is the one thing I do agree with Lala about that. I don't think he really loves Michelle. Like, maybe he did at one point. I don't think he does now. And then she says he's a clown. True. I would say Lala is too for different reasons, but fine. And Michelle's like, go, Lala. And then Lala mocks Jesse, talking about his love for Isabella. And she's like, oh my God. And then he's like, this morning, Isabella was lying on me and I didn't want it to end. And she says she can't stand listening to him talk about fatherhood when meanwhile, he's using Isabella and their divorce to control Michelle. And she says he's a narcissist. Listen, she's not necessarily wrong about that, but she's another one who like get a new line. It's like the same thing over and over again. And she's also not giving us any information or even an opinion that's, I don't know, interesting, unique, that's something we haven't heard before. Like she's not giving us any insight into Jesse or Jax or any of these people that isn't insight that we're already getting on our own or just from hearing the main cast speak. That's why I'm not like sold at all on Lala. Like I can maybe have my arm twisted into Sheena being back on the show, but I'm not sold at all on Lala. She's not bringing anything. She's bringing like pretty obvious, easy opinions. Like call Jesse a narcissist. Okay, anybody could do that. That's an easy thing to throw out. It's hard. You can't even argue with it because, Jesse sucks and whatever. Fine. But it's like, and again, I know there's a lot of people that like Jesse more than Michelle, but, I prefer him as a reality star more. Certainly. I find him more entertaining, more like entertaining to watch. 100%. Yes. Do I think that means he's like a good person? No, not necessarily, but I don't like need every reality star to be a good person. But what I will say is that like these observations that she's making about him, like they're not like interesting or even like that thoughtful. Like it's like give me something that I'm not getting from Michelle and Janet, and like I'm already getting all these from everybody else. So what else? Like what else is new? I don't need this. Like it's just like an extra body in the room to echo the thoughts that are already coming from the main cast. Like at least Sheena was bringing like, oh, Jesse's ex is fucking the guy from Baywatch. Like at least Sheena brought something new in terms of information. And I'm still not even sold on Sheena, but at least Sheena had that. Like what is Lala bringing? Bring something. And clearly she's still talking about her ex, which she talked about during the pool scene. So it's like she doesn't have anything new to say. I'm just saying. So then Jesse says Michelle's idea of control is what he did when they got separated. Because she would go out and she would come back late. And he was concerned because she was coming home at like 3 a.m. And he's like, she's a young woman. She's attractive. Like, what if some creep follows her home? We have a child sleeping in the house. I wanted the doors to be locked. I don't want like to leave any like the alarm off, like, or whatever. And he's like, that's why I wanted to know, like, when's she going to be home? Or what if there's an emergency? Where are you? Like, can I contact you? He's like, but I wasn't asking, never asked who she was with or what she was doing. He's like, I just wanted to know about like when she was going to be getting home. So everything was like locked up or whatever. And he says, fine, if that's her idea of control, then I'm controlling. I am sure that there's maybe some truth to that, but I am sure that there's a whole other side. Like, I bet you if we asked Michelle, she would probably be like, no, he was asking, like, who was I going out with? Like, I'm sure we'd get a different story. So that's what's getting me so frustrated with these two. It's like kind of like the classic divorce. It's like I'm getting like half truths and like I'm just kind of like sick of it. I'm like, you guys are divorced and just fucking act like adults. Like, I'm just getting frustrated. Okay. So where was I? Jesse says he wasn't trying to control her on purpose. Okay. So now he's kind of shifting to like, maybe I was controlling, but it wasn't deliberate. So, and listen, I think he was probably trying to have some control because I think she divorced him. And I do think that was like a blow to his ego. Because you could tell he kind of like thought he was hot shit, So I do think that like maybe him getting into like these money troubles and then his wife leaves him, like that's got to have taken him down a few notches. You know what I mean? So I do think that he was trying to like maintain control in some way. But I bet you that, and then it does seem that he's kind of like loosened that up like before the reunion from what we've heard from these after shows. And I do wonder if some of the satisfaction that he's getting from like being a reality star and you know, like this little bit of fame and attention, like I do wonder if that is now filling that cup inside of him that needs like that validation. So maybe that's why he's easing off a bit. And also because he knows people are watching him and he wants to continue like being liked, like it's all interconnected here. Okay. Britt says Lala says her and Michelle share the same attorney and that Jesse definitely uses Isabella to drive Michelle crazy. For example, him saying he's going to move to Newport. Yeah, I mean, like he knew that was going to trigger her. Like he purposefully said that to trigger her, clearly, which we all saw. Um, so that's again another example of like I talked about that on the after show for that episode when he said that was my commentary. So it's like thanks again, like Lala's not bringing anything. Michelle said that too. Like again, she's not bringing anything. Can we get her off here? She's taking up space. I shouldn't have even written down what she says, but it's too late, guys. If I had to listen now, you do. So Britt says the mental health facility, because they talk about, is Jesse a narcissist? Lala says yes in her opinion. And then Britt says the mental health facility said that Jax is definitely a narcissist, and they can't treat him for it. There's no cure. they said, but yeah, Jax has it, which, yeah, I mean, I think we know that. Lala explains what a narcissist is, by the way, because she is the expert, guys. She says it's not what most people think. It's not someone who just loves themselves. That's not what I thought. I thought that was like a part of it. It can be grandiose sense of self. She says it's like it's so much more than that, and it's like the opposite. I was like, what? So it's not that, it's the opposite. Okay. You're not good at explaining these things, Lala. So then she says, but Jesse also falls into that category. Here's the thing. We all have narcissistic traits. That's a fact. All people have narcissism within them. Yes. It is a very large spectrum. And if you have a certain amount, like to a high degree, where you meet kind of the level of actually having narcissistic personality disorder, it means you have, like, you don't have just a little bit of narcissism in you like the average person. You have like, a huge amount, and it is like to the point that it is a disorder, right? So, there can be people who are not necessarily narcissists who might have moments though where they might show a narcissistic trait. You know what I mean? So, and yes, no one is denying for a second that Jax is not like full-blown narcissist. And clearly mental health professionals have diagnosed him with it. Now, could Jesse be narcissistic personality disorder? Yes, possibly. I don't know for sure. He hasn't been on my TV that long to say. And I'm not doing like, I'm not going to say 100% and diagnose it. But he could also be somebody who has just like more narcissism within him. Is it to the degree that he would fall under the like personality disorder of it? Or is his just like a high degree approaching the personality disorder, but not quite there yet? You know what I mean? This is my way of like trying to make sense of it to myself, like, and understand the spectrum. I'm not an expert, by the way, just like from what I've read on my own time. I'm just saying maybe he has like a lot of that in him, but maybe he's not like as high up, or he's even higher and he's also just so highly intelligent that he's better at, you know what I mean? Because Jax is also kind of dumb. So it could be that too. But like, I think I just get bothered by Lala because she speaks on it like, in facts a lot of the time. And I feel like, I don't know, maybe it just feels like she says it about everybody that she doesn't like, but really it's really just been Tom Sandoval, Jax, and Jesse. I mean, that's 3 people, but it is Bravo and they are Bravo men, so that's 3 people that could definitely have it. Yeah. I mean, there are also people who are just assholes. Let's all never forget that. Like Janet. Janet's a good example because Janet, like, I don't think Janet is a narcissist. But do I think that she has some narcissistic traits, like her lack of accountability? Yeah. But I don't think that doesn't mean she is an actual narcissist or has that disorder. No. She's just can't see her own fault sometimes. And she also is an asshole. So those people also exist. We have to remember that. Okay, everyone. This has been a very long recap, but I hope you enjoyed it. And you are now in the know for everything Valley. See you next time. Bye. Thanks for listening, everyone. Your support really means everything to me, and this show wouldn't be possible without you, the listeners. So please, if you enjoy the podcast, leave a 5-star rating and subscribe so you don't miss an episode. For more, you can join my Patreon, patreon.com/Bravo and Botox. And for $5 a month, you'll get 4 extra podcast episodes a month. You'll also get early releases of Bravo Paper episodes and more. Please also subscribe to my YouTube channel at The Bravo Papers and follow me on Twitter, Instagram, at Bravo and Botox and at The Bravo Papers. If you'd like to buy me a coffee, you can at buymeacoffee.com/Bravo and Botox. Send your love through some much needed caffeine. And any guest that was on today's episode will be in the show notes, all their social media and contact information. So thank you so much, everyone. Keep overanalyzing Bravo.